Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 278 of the podcast, or you're joining us live on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. And if you're not and you want to catch the show live, make sure to subscribe on one of those platforms. Turn on your notifications so you know when the show's going live. Like right now. We are just hours removed from UFC Vegas 50. About a day removed from one championship, whatever it was. Eagle FC 46, I think. Bellator, something or other. I watched all of these except Bellator. We're going to get into all of that. But before we do, let me introduce from Parts Unknown the main ingredient. Mr. Arthur Vanderlei. Art, how you feeling on this Saturday late evening, my friend?
Bill, I'm feeling phenomenal. All right, got a little bit of a sinus infection, traveling in all these different time zones. My body can't handle it like it used to when I was younger. But Bill, what's been making me feel better is the card that we just got off of. Very pleasantly surprised with this card.
Did you get off on the card, Art?
Yeah, Bill. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well,
it satisfied me.
This is turning into a very different show very quickly. I am not in my home studio, if you can't tell, Art. I am in a hotel room in Orlando, Florida. Just a hop, skip, and a jump away from where I live near the Tampa Bay area. I like to call it my second home because I basically pay a second mortgage to a giant rat that lives in this neighborhood. And he goes by the name of Mickey Mouse. Art, I could literally buy a second house with the amount of money I have spent here. But I have to say, with the memories I've built with my daughter, who is a 4-year-old diva at this point, it's been a worthy investment. I mean, she has so much fun. She gets so excited still when we come here, even though we're here all the time. And she's on spring break from school next week. So my wife booked us a hotel here, and we're going to do the parks, and then we're meeting up with some friends. Going to do some pool time. Even though the weather cooled off a little bit, she's still excited for the pool. It's a fun time. We're going to Epcot tomorrow. We're going to Magic Kingdom on Monday. I gotta say, it's still fun. As many times as I've been here, and as many times as I have brought my daughter here, just seeing the way that she lights up with the magic that is Disney World, it really does make it worth it. I know it's cheesy, but when you have a young daughter, if you can do things for them that makes them light up like that, it's always worth it. What are your thoughts, Art?
Yeah, Bill, I'm looking forward to having kids one day. And I think part of, raising them is, pleasing them, first of all. And, and yeah, I think that I'm loving the content from Mark Fellows. Mark, your dog has never left me disappointed yet. So,
this is the late night version of MMA on the Rocks, folks.
But Bill, like I was saying, I think part of being a good parent is, having fun with your kid, not just raising them. So, Bill, that's awesome. And I'm sure Jeff the Animal Wilson would agree. He's had some fun times with you guys down there. Which reminds me, Bill, clear your calendar for March 31st, April 1st, 2nd, and the early morning of the 3rd.
Why?
Because, Bill, it's my understanding that Jeff the Animal Wilson is going to pay you a visit.
The Jeff the Animal Wilson?
Yeah, the one and only is going to be paying you a visit, Bill.
I wish he would have. I wish he would have let me in on this. I'll give you. So I know Jeff is coming down for a wedding in a couple weeks. I'm going to give you a funny anecdote that happened to me here at the hotel tonight, Art. So my daughter is very well potty trained, right? And because she's 4 years old, very well experienced, and never really had an issue. But we do keep some diapers on hand in case of an emergency. So we're driving here. We're stuck in traffic, like bumper to bumper traffic on I-4 from Tampa to Orlando. And out of nowhere, she says, I have to go potty. And normally she's always fine in the car. Like we never have to pull over to the side of the road or anything. So we throw a diaper on her. She actually makes it all the way to the hotel and goes, makes it to a toilet. Then we're kind of walking around the resort here, which is actually very large. We're staying at the Wyndham Bonnet Creek here in Orlando. And they have a little playground, took her to the playground. And she insisted on going in the pool, even though it's a little chilly here. I'll give you the exact temperature. It's 52 degrees, which is, that's cold for Florida, Art. I know you're up there in Maine where it's or somewhere up north where it's probably in the 30s. 52 degrees, too cold to go in the pool. The pool is heated, but she insisted on it. So my wife goes to one of the other ends of the resort to pick up dinner for us. And my daughter insists she needs to go in the pool. So I bring her back to the room. I put her in her bathing suit. She goes in the pool. It's heated. She's swimming around in there. I'm just kind of sitting there watching. Everything's fine. Then I realize, there are no towels near the pool. None at all. And I see another little family nearby, and I said, hey, do you guys know where to get towels? And they said, oh, you have to go all the way to Tower 1. And we're in Tower 6, which is probably like a half a mile walk away. I can't leave my daughter in the pool to go a half a mile away to get a towel. There are none nearby. So I text my wife and I say, hey, I know you're picking up dinner. Can you grab some towels and bring them over to this tower? We're in this pool. Okay, she says, no problem. So she's going to bring the towels, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my daughter swims over to me and says, Daddy, I have to poop. And panic sets in.
Oh, man.
I'm like looking around. I'm like, all right, I need to get her back inside to get her to the toilet. I have no towel. It's 50 degrees outside. I can't just bring her in soaking wet. And I'm like, honey, mommy's coming. She's bringing some towels. It's going to be okay. I'm so cold. All right, well, you got to move around. So she starts swimming around a little bit more, and she goes, that makes me have to poop even more. So now, now I'm stuck. If she stays still too long, she gets cold. But if she moves around, she has to poop more. It's quite a predicament, Art. So what I had to do, I was wearing a hoodie at the time. I took my hoodie off. I pulled her out of the pool. I just wrapped her in the hoodie.
It wasn't an MMA on the Rocks hoodie, was it?
It was not. I actually don't own one.
All right. All right, so we're in the clear so far.
But if you want to own one, you can buy one through our friends at Team Reaper. The website's reaper1.co. You can use the promo code MMA Rocks 10 and buy yourself an MMA on the Rocks hoodie, which I still don't have. So I wrap her up in my hoodie and bring her upstairs and thankfully get her to the toilet in time, where she dropped like literally like an egg roll. It was impressive. Like, I don't know, Art, I don't know how this turd that came out of this kid like fit inside of this kid. Like, it was like I can understand her panic. But it all worked out. So I got back up here, and then the wife came back, and she wasn't able to get any towels. So I was able to get back up to the room and get her on the toilet, and then get her right in the bathtub right as the wife returned with some steak and sushi. So not a bad night overall, just a little bit of panic in between. So that's my parenting anecdote for the night, Art.
Bill, I'm glad everything came out okay, literally and metaphorically. All right. But man, Bill, that sounds like a sticky situation, man. Me, I think I'd be starting to sweat. No towels in sight. The kid's gotta, let it out. It's rather brisk, so you don't want the baby to get sick, of course. Bill, but you found a way, man. Good for you.
Yeah, well, luckily there was no sweating involved, because once I took my hoodie off in 50-degree weather, I was incapable of sweating. So got her back upstairs, and everything was taken care of, so to speak. Art, while I was waiting for you to join the podcast, I've been enjoying some of this tequila here. And for those of you not watching on video, the name of this tequila is JAJA. Art, I know you speak a little bit of Spanish. Can you translate for me?
It's pronounced haha, like you're laughing.
Yeah, and I just imagine like how they were naming this tequila company. Like, hey, what should we call this tequila? And somebody was like, haha. And somebody said, what the fuck is so funny, Enrique? And and there it went. I purchased this bottle of tequila from Walgreens, and it came with this board game. It's an adult board game called What Do You Meme? But I was about to buy a bottle of tequila, and the clerk at Walgreens told me, hey, did you check out our clearance section? So if you bought this bottle of tequila, which is normally like $30, but if you bought it with the board game, it was like a box set. It was on clearance for $11. So I don't even care if the board game sucks. This is an $11 bottle of tequila, and it's very drinkable. I'm drinking it neat right here, Art. So that was the bargain of the week for me.
Bill, that sounds like the best deal in town.
I'd say so. So I've been lucking out. My kid didn't poop in the pool. I got $11 tequila. I'm living up in Orlando, Florida, ready to go to Epcot tomorrow. Life is good. What do you say we talk about some fights here, Art?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you want to get right into the UFC? There was some other stuff going on that I can kind of fill you in on, because I know you didn't catch it. But how do you want to approach this?
Bill, why don't we start with the UFC stuff, and then you can fill me in on the Pride FC stuff that I missed.
All right, so UFC Fight Night 203 or UFC Vegas 50, depending on how you're keeping track. Magomed Ankalaev, pretty one-sided victory over Thiago Santos in the main event here. Ankalaev just looked so much bigger in there. And his last couple of fights, being in there with Kutalaba, like they looked they both look like monsters, but Ankalaev just looks so much bigger than Santos. Like I couldn't get over it. It really looked like a middleweight fighting a light heavyweight. And just the pressure and the consistency. He rocked Santos a couple of times. I didn't feel like there was ever a point really. Like Santos might have won a round or two, but I didn't ever feel like there was a point where I thought he could win the fight. I kind of thought he was out of it for the entire 5 rounds. Even though there were moments when he was winning and he probably won maybe a round, possibly 2. Give me your thoughts, Art.
Yeah, Bill, I agree with you. I gave Santos the second round. That was the round, I believe, where he knocked Ankalaev down with a nasty over the top left, actually. So I gave him that round. Gave him round 3 as well, just because I thought the forward pressure was better. But I think one of the judges had it that way too. So one judge had it 3 rounds for Ankalaev and 2 for Santos. But either way, I didn't see Santos doing enough to win the fight, especially in that 4th round where it really started to fade. And in the 5th round, it was all Ankalaev, man. The forward pressure was just too much. And Santos, I think it's just, he's 38 and it's been a long time since he's had to fight 5 rounds. So he just was not ready for championship rounds tonight.
Yeah. I mean, 38 at light heavyweight is like, all right, he's older than me. And he had both of his knees destroyed in that John Jones fight. All credit to the guy. I think he's tough as hell. I just don't think you're ever going to be the same after something like that. You know, it's just, it's like you have to start over from square one after an injury like that. After doing this for so long, and you got to start over and still getting in there with monsters like Ankalaev, who I've been high on for a long time. I don't know if you've listened to previous shows, Art, when I used to do this show with a guy by the name of Jeff the Animal Wilson, but I've been very high on Ankalaev for a long time. The dude is just nasty. He's good everywhere. He's got takedowns. He's got dynamic striking. But he also is patient in there. He picks his shots. Very underrated at light heavyweight. If you told me he was fighting the champ Glover Teixeira next week, I would probably favor Ankalaev at this point. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against Ankalaev. And Bill, something that I saw Santos doing was using those leg kicks and just chewing up that lead leg of Ankalaev. And you could even see in the 5th round, it was all red and it almost didn't phase him, which to me, Bill, is really scary for a man to be that tough. And like you said, so calculated, so methodical in his approach. You never see Ankalaev frustrated in there, you know? And that calmness, in this profession, I think is really scary. So yeah, Ankalaev definitely a contender. Bill, what do you think he does now? Does he wait for the result of Yuri Proyaskia and the champ?
I mean, I don't think Ankalaev is the kind of guy to like call anybody out, or I didn't even hear his post fight interview, but I imagine he didn't call anyone out. He just had a victory in a main event over a guy who has fought for championships in the past and fought several main events. So I imagine he would be in the conversation. He's just not very marketable of a fighter. He's got some crazy wild knockouts, but like they were a while ago, and then he had like the kind of fluke knockout over Kutalaba that they had to run it back because it was kind of weird, where Kutalaba was kind of doing the rope a dope, and then The fight got stopped, and then they had a rematch, and Ankalaev knocked him out. It's just like very weird circumstances where the guy was not able to build up a reputation that matches his skills. You know, as far as his skills go, I say, yeah, give him a title shot next. But he just needs that like little bit extra something that I can't quite put my finger on. But he doesn't have it. So I don't know. I don't know what you do with him from here. My question for you, Art, is what do you do with Thiago Santos now? After the guy looked like, he just didn't have an answer in there in a main event and at 38 years old.
Oh, it's tough because Santos, he still has that power, and you could even see glimpses of it this evening. I think that Ankalaev's skill set was just a little too much for him, but I'd have to look up Santos' record. Bill, do you remember off the top of your head if Santos has fought Dominic Reyes? I think they have fought each other before recently.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I can pull it up real quick.
Because I would like to see that.
It doesn't look like he has, but it does look like Santos has only won one of his last 5 fights. Granted, his last 5 fights, if you look at this lineup, so Ankalaev, he lost the decision. Previous to that, he beat Johnny Walker. And then his 3 fights before that, he lost to Alexander Rakic, Glover Teixeira, the current champion, and John Jones, which, was a close fight. It was a split decision. He tore both of his knees apart. No shame in any of that. But, he has lost 4 of his last 5. But, no, he has never fought Dominic Reyes. That's actually a really fun fight. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, it's tricky because Santos definitely has the skills to be in the UFC. Fought at middleweight as well and did pretty well there. But yeah, like you said, man, the double knee injury. I don't know how you come back from that, man.
All right, Art. Let's talk about you, Dong. And then let's talk about the co-main event.
Bill, I've gone back and listened to some episodes, and I know that you guys on MMA on the Rocks, you've been singing the praises of Yadong. And he's a tough guy, man. He's got 11 knockout wins, 8 of them in the first round. He's under Uriah Faber, which Uriah Faber. He handpicks his guys. Okay?
So wait, are you saying Yadong is under Uriah Faber?
Yeah. Training with Team Alpha Male. And Bill, listen, he's got a great team, and we know that team is grapple heavy, so he can definitely improve that with Team Alpha Male. But Bill, I think that Marlon Moraes is a huge feather in his cap. I mean, knocks him out in 1 round, 2 minutes, 6 seconds. Bill, I think the sky's the limit for Song Yadong here, and he called out the king of the bantamweight division, Dominic
TJ
Cruz.
Dillashaw?
He called out Dominic Cruz. And Bill, I don't know if that was wise. I think he'd have a better chance against TJ Dillashaw. But, personal bias aside, I think the sky's the limit for Yadong, man. He looked great out there. I really didn't see Marlon Moraes presenting any issues. But, Moraes is a different conversation as well with his last couple of fights. So, Bill, first, give me your take on the fight, and then help me figure out what we do with Moraes here.
I was very impressed by Song here. I thought the first shot that landed on Moraes, it was like borderline illegal because it was like behind the ear, and I'm not sure if that's like territory that you're not supposed to go to. But he showed that killer instinct, and I was impressed with everything. I was impressed with the call out of Don McCruz. I thought it was great. I was impressed with the follow through. He just looked phenomenal. My concern is with Marlon Moraes, who is a world-class fighter who has been knocked out 4 fights in a row. He has lost 5 of his last 6, and all 5 of those losses have been by knockout or by TKO. Granted, they're all against top-level competition. If you look at his record, it's Yadong Song, Merab Dvalishvili, Rob Font, Corey Sandhagen. Then he had a split decision win over Jose Aldo, which a lot of people think shouldn't have gone his way. And then he had a TKO loss to Henry Cejudo. So I'm not ready to say that Marlon Moraes is not a UFC caliber fighter, but I do think he should move up in weight. I think this weight cut has just been like, the guy carries so much muscle, and he dehydrates himself so much to make 135. Like, he's just so thick. And at his age, 33, this is the time where it gets really difficult to cut weight. So he's draining himself so much to get into these fights. I really think we could see a resurgence of Marlon Moraes if he moves up to 145 pounds. And I would even argue that this guy in one championship could probably compete at 155 pounds, where they don't do much weight cutting. Like, none of the athletes really cut much weight. Put Marlon Moraes against Stan Lee over there in one championship. I think that's a great fight at 145 pounds. Put him against Gary Tonin. I think that's a really fun fight at 145 pounds. I don't think that Marlon Moraes is done at this level of competition, but I think he is done at 135 pounds. Give me your thoughts, Art.
Bill, I'm finding it very hard to disagree with you. Even the list that you mentioned of the guys who have knocked him out, that's a murderer's row of in the bantamweight division. All of those guys on any given day could be any other of those top ranked fighters. So I think you're right. Maybe a move up to 145. Even in the UFC, I agree. I think Marlon Moraes is definitely UFC material, and even his early fights are a big testament to that. But Bill, one thing I did want to add, going back to the fight with Song Yadong, was just the uppercut that finished Moraes here. It was short. He stepped right into it, and Moraes never saw it coming, unfortunately. So, like you said, Bill, he's a big, muscular dude, and he really has to drain himself out to make the weight. So I think for Moraes, maybe a move up to 145 wouldn't be a bad move. We've seen a lot of fighters be able to extend their careers that way. I think that really Jose Aldo is one of the few fighters who's been able to drop weight and be successful in a new weight class. But for Moraes, he might have to just go with the flow and move up to 45 or ONE FC fight at 155. I think that both of those options are really good for Moraes to extend his career a little bit.
Yeah, I think he would be a great pickup for one championship, which I want to talk about after we get done with the UFC, because they did have a very good card this weekend as well. Sadiq Youssef picking up a unanimous decision win over Alex Caceres. I thought this was a very close, very competitive fight. I think Caceres actually outlanded Yusuf, but it was just the pressure of Sadiq Yusuf in this fight that won him the decision. He was able to keep Alex Caceres on his back foot for a majority of this fight. He was able to put him on the ground a couple times. He had his back a couple times. It was a very technical fight, very back and forth. But Sadiq Yusuf showing his toughness here. What did you think of this one, Art?
Yeah, Bill. Very back and forth, but to be honest, I just felt like Alex Caceres kind of felt like he could never get going. I mean, he had a great first round, good for him, but then it was all Sadiq Youssef in rounds 2 and 3, and unfortunately, Caceres just it felt like he couldn't get out of second gear for me.
Are you saying Caceres?
Yeah,
It's
why?
Caceres.
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, you said Caceres.
Oh,
All right. The next fight was a sad one for me. Khalil Roundtree, TKO over Carl Robertson. Robertson, buddy of mine. We follow each other on Instagram. I guess that makes us friends. So I was rooting for him in this one. Khalil Roundtree is an enigma wrapped in something else that's confusing. How does that phrase go, Art?
an enigma wrapped in a riddle.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. An enigma wrapped in a riddle. So Roundtree has trained in Thailand for a number of years. I believe at Tiger Muay Thai over there. And then he comes out in this fight in like a very low, very hunched over stance, which is, I believe I can speak to this as a Muay Thai coach, is not a Muay Thai style. He comes out in a very hunched over, like waiting for a takedown kind of stance. And it seemed to throw Robertson off. Robertson was backing up the entire time in the first round. He had his moments in there, but it seemed like he could just never get comfortable. Then in the second round, and this is what I always admire about Roundtree, he fights like he has the biggest chip on his shoulder. He fights like everybody in the world is counting him out. And he was so vicious in the second round. He dropped Carl Robertson, and then first of all, I read the description of the knockout before I actually watched the fight, and it said TKO by body kick and punches. So by reading that, I thought he would have dropped him with a body kick and then followed up with some punches. No, he dropped him and then kicked him in the body while he was on the ground. Probably the most vicious body kick to a down opponent that I've ever seen. And then continued with the TKO. Give me your thoughts on this one, Mark.
Yeah, Bill, I was watching this one, and Bill, that body kick, it was more like a curb stomp, man. It was nasty. And then, Carl Robertson able to get up, and Roundtree just hits him with a nasty 1-2. Robertson folds up like a lawn chair and kind of face plants, and Roundtree wanted to keep going, and I'm glad the ref pulled him off. But Bill, I thought this was a great fight from Roundtree. I'm a fan of Carl Robertson as well. You know, he fights out of Neptune, New Jersey, which is I've driven through New Jersey a few times, and nice town down by the beach there. But Bill, yeah, it's hard to count Khalil Roundtree out because he fights with that aggression. And he was so nice in the interview afterwards, getting really emotional with Paul Felder there. But yeah, Bill, I think that Khalil Roundtree is, he's kind of made a career off of, proving doubters wrong, and I think he did it again this evening because Robertson, he looked he was a little confused in the first round. The stance was something that I noticed as well from Roundtree. It was just weird. You don't really see that. Especially from a striking position. Strikers are usually more erect when they're fighting. Yadong is a perfect example of
Yeah,
your
your dong is usually more erect.
exactly, Bill. So you get it, but yeah. I mean, it looked like Robertson was kind of figuring out his timing at the end of the first round, and then Khalil Roundtree just came out with ruthless aggression in the second round. But man, that body kick is engraved into my brain. I mean, it was like I said, it was more like a curb stomp.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. And Robertson, as poorly as this fight went for him, I like him at 205. I would like to see him continue at 205. I think he just needs to get a little bit more comfortable in there because I feel like all the tools, all the skills are there. He just needs to piece something together mentally. He had James Krause in his corner, and James Krause was calling for a lot of things that were not being delivered. So I think if he just works on those things in training and gets used to being in there with bigger guys, I mean, in all reality, he's probably one of these guys that would benefit from like a 195-pound division. But, that's just not the reality. The reality is we have these divisions to work with, and he probably should fight at 205. Drew Dober, first round TKO over Terence McKinney. I am happy that I didn't put money on this fight because Terence McKinney was a big underdog against Drew Dober, and I thought McKinney was going to get it done, and he almost did. Like, he almost had Drew Dober finished a couple times in the 3 minutes and 17 seconds that this fight lasted. But Drew Dober was able to come back. He was able to drop McKinney and then able to finish him with punches from the top. I'm still impressed with Terence McKinney. This dude can fight, and those long range knees that land on the face, that's a scary thing to deal with. And the fact that this guy has hardly ever been out of the first round, he's the real deal. I think he belongs in the UFC. I think he's a puzzle that these lightweights are going to have to figure out. And I thought this was a great fight. Give me your thoughts, Art.
Yeah, this was a fun one, man. Only went one round, and Terence McKinney came out so aggressive, man. He hits like his hands are made out of cinder blocks, man. He had Drew Dober in some dire straits there, Bill. When Dober was on the ground and McKinney was just pouring it on thick, I thought the ref was going to stop it. And then Drew Dober able to create some space with his legs and kind of kick Terence McKinney across the cage with his feet. And yeah, Drew Dober able to kind of ride out the storm and knock Terence McKinney out. Yeah, this fight was very crazy. It's very hard to put into words.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Fellows, I agree with you. Round of the year candidate for sure. But yeah, this was definitely fun. And Bill, Drew Dober was able to kind of ride out the storm a little bit. I don't know how many other lightweights are going to be able to do that against Terence McKinney. As long as his cardio doesn't fail him, I think that Terence McKinney can be very scary in this lightweight division.
For sure. This fight had glimpses of Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns, for those of you who are old school boxing fans. Probably one of the greatest rounds in boxing history. Hagler Hearns. If you've never heard of it, go and Google it and watch that fight. One of the best boxing matches of all time. Yeah, I was tempted to put some money down on Terence McKinney because he's such an underdog against Drew Dober. But after seeing the fight play out, I'm glad I didn't put that money down. Alex Pereira and Bruno Silva. This was, Pereira, like kind of systematically shut down Silva. This was like two top tier guys that probably fought each other a little bit too early in the UFC, in my opinion. I feel like you probably should have kept these two guys away from each other a little bit, because these are two guys who could potentially be, number one and number two. Like, rank them however you want. But down the line at middleweight, they could be both top contenders. Pereira coming away with a unanimous decision. Of course, we know Pereira for knocking out the current middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya, twice in kickboxing. And then he came over to the UFC and he's looked phenomenal. I thought he showed a lot of good things in this fight, Art. I thought he showed some great takedown defense. And I thought he looked good overall, coming away with a win over Bruno Silva, no matter how it comes, is impressive. So give me your thoughts.
Yeah, Alex Pereira able to get it done today, and Bruno Silva, very tough customer as well. But yeah, Bill, um, you know, it's interesting watching Alex Pereira go through the division at the moment. Bill, you just mentioned it that he's fought Adesanya before. Bill, how do you see Pereira running into Adesanya sooner rather than later, or does he need a little bit of time to kind of wade in the waters of the UFC middleweight division?
I mean, stylistically, he's there. I feel like the storyline is there. He needs to call out somebody like a Paulo Costa
Hmm.
and get an impressive finish. Somebody like a Marvin Vettori, like, call out some of those guys. He's calling out Adesanya now. I don't think that gets the job done. I think he needs to call out a Vettori, a Whitaker, a Costa, one of these guys, and get like maybe a Derek Brunson, and get like a really devastating knockout over one of those top guys, and then he'll be right in there for a title shot. Yeah, that's it. That's my thoughts on that.
All right, Bill, that's all I got for you on the main card. Bill, were you able to watch any of the prelims at all?
I was, and I will run through them a little bit as I pour myself some more haha. Here. That's how we say it, right, Art? Haha.
Yeah. Yeah, if you text someone in Spanish, that's how you tell that. That's like saying LOL to them.
Yeah, as I often do, text people in Spanish. All right. Here's what we're gonna do, Art. I'm gonna run over the rest of this card, and you tell me what stood out to you. There's only a couple fights that stood out to me. JJ Aldridge, unanimous decision over Julian Robertson. Javid Basharat, unanimous decision over Trevin Jones. Damon Jackson submitted Camuel Kirk, and I have to speak to the toughness of Camuel Kirk, because he fought my boy Billy Quarantillo on the Contender Series. So I always have to acknowledge the toughness of this guy, because my boy Billy knocked him out to get into the UFC. Miranda Maverick submitted Sabina Mazo in the second round. Cody Brundich and Dolce Lungiambila. This was the comeback of the night, maybe the fight of the night for me. Submitted him with a guillotine in the first round. Guido Canetti TKO'd Chris Moitino in the first round. And Azamat Mirzakhanov knocked out Tafan Nchikwi. They're calling it a flying knee. I would not call it a flying knee, because he got like an inch and a half off of the ground. It was a very impressive knockout, but flying knee is a bit of a stretch. Give me your thoughts on all of this, Art.
All right, Bill. The two fights that stood out to me, and granted, the prelims were actually pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Very very fun prelim card. But Bill, I have to give it to Guido Canetti for his KO over Chris Moutinho because he was just landing some really hard shots, and Canetti's almost 40, so he was a big underdog. And I thought the stoppage was really good. Chris Moutinho was a bit upset, but you could tell he was out on his feet. And then the second fight that stood out to me, Bill, you went over it a little bit, was Dolce Lungiambula versus Cody Brundich. Man, this was another round of the year contender because Cody Brundich was getting the business. And then Lungiambula, was winning with strikes, landing some really hard shots on Brundage. Looked like he was going to finish the fight. And then he goes for a double leg takedown, and Cody Brundage said, "That was your mistake, friend," and caught him with a nasty guillotine. But I think Lungiambula, he looked good at heavyweight, but man, he's so muscular, and you could just tell that he was winded halfway through that first round, man. I'd like to see him improve his cardio a little bit. But Bill, this guy looks like he's chiseled out of stone, dude, and he's just so muscular. And Bill, you've been grappling for a long time. You know that the body has to get oxygen to all that muscle. So, that takes a lot out of a person. But yeah, really, really good comeback from Cody Brundage, man, because he was in some deep, deep water.
This was one of the fights that I read the results before I saw the fight. So I saw a guillotine finish, and I just assumed that it was by Lungiambula. So I was watching the fight, and I was seeing Lungiambula kind of like grabbing that front headlock position while he was rocking Brundage so much. And then Brundage, to his credit, he was taking so much damage and then managed to lock up that guillotine towards the end of the first round. I was so impressed. So even knowing the results ahead of time, I knew that it ended via guillotine in the first round, but I didn't really pick up on who got the guillotine. So while I was watching the fight, I assumed it was Lungiambula. 100%. Like, if you asked me to bet on it after seeing the results of the fight, if you asked me to bet on it, I would have bet on Lungiambula. And then seeing him beat the shit out of Brundage for like 3 full minutes, and then Brundage grabbing that guillotine, one of the greatest comeback victories I've ever witnessed. So that was just great. It was one of the best performances on the prelims for sure. And yeah, it was just a great card. We're coming off an awesome pay-per-view. It was a great card overall. Give me your thoughts, Art.
Yeah, Bill. Great round from both of those guys. Man, and credit to Brundage. That is one tough dude. There were a few times where I thought the ref was going to stop it. I mean, he was bloodied up and he was getting beat up like a sack of beef.
For sure. Anything else on UFC Fight Night 203, UFC Vegas 250?
But I think we can put a bow on it if you want to talk about some of the other fighting events from this weekend.
We can. And we can also preview next week's card as soon as I preview that. We're just going to pull that up real quick, but the internet is not, the hotel internet is not cooperating here at the Wyndham. Big surprise. I don't know about the card next week, but let's talk about one championship. So the main event, Tom Lee knocking out Gary Tonin 56 seconds into the first round. So Gary Tonin, I'm sure I'm condescending to a lot of you when I tell you that Gary Tonin is a submission grappling expert. One of the best grapplers on the planet, bar none, regardless of weight class. Gave Gordon Ryan his black belt in jiu-jitsu. He dove into MMA, quickly went 6-0. Got signed by one championship and fought for the title this weekend against Ton Lee. Went for a heel hook, an outside heel hook, and was really going for it hard. And Ton Lee defended it not only perfectly, but knocked out Gary Tonin out cold while defending it. And that's why, I don't want to say leg locks don't work in MMA. I don't want to be that guy, but they will work until people figure out how to defend them. And once you figure out how to defend a leg lock, you just have to, for a heel hook, you have to clear your knee. And then once you're able to add in strikes, and then when you're talking about one championship, you're able to add in steroids and not cutting weight. It's really, really difficult to finish a fight with a leg lock. Give me your fight thoughts here, Art.
Yeah, Bill. Gary Tonin challenging Tan Lee. Tan Lee's a tough dude, man. And Gary Tonin, unfortunately, when it comes to mixed martial arts, I feel like he's very one-dimensional. Great grappler. Don't get me wrong. Fantastic grappler. One of the world's best. Has multiple medals in multiple grappling competitions. Through his leg lock system that he's been trained under John Danaher for. But Bill, you pretty much summed it up. The leg locks don't always translate very well to MMA, and Tan Lee made him pay for it. And Bill, one thing I want to address, because I was looking at Gary Tonin's grappling record, and he gave Gordon Ryan his black belt, and then lost to Gordon Ryan in the absolute of Abu Dhabi 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just thought that was a funny story. But Bill, did you watch the co-main event for one championship? How much of this were you able to watch yesterday?
Yeah, I did see John Lineker knock out Viviano Fernandez, and John Lineker. So this fight was at featherweight, and I think John Lineker in the UFC's fought at bantamweight a lot, and he cut a lot of weight to get there, and he still had incredible knockout power. So without cutting as much weight, you gotta figure the guy has as much, if not more, knockout power at 145 pounds, and he showed that, just demolishing Bibiano Fernandez, who has been around this game for a long time. So much respect for that guy, but John Lineker, man, he just has that. If he touches you, it fucking hurts, and it might put you to sleep. What do you think, Art?
Yeah, I mean, John Lineker, even in his time in the UFC, very, very dangerous knockout power, man. Bill, I'm actually trying to look up one schedule because these fights sound like they were pretty awesome. Gary Tonin gets knocked out by Tan Lee, and John Lineker wins the bantamweight championship in one, in the second round. I think I'm missing out here, Bill. This promotion looks pretty awesome.
Yeah, there were only 5 fights on this card, and they were all finishes. So, the one championship card is definitely worth checking out. We can preview next week's UFC card next, or if I can actually pull it up on this hotel Wi-Fi, which I'm not currently able to do. Or we can talk about Eagle FC 46, which happened on Friday night. Does that interest you at all? Or
Hold on. What's the card you said from Eagle FC?
and it happened Friday night.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm just looking at the next fight card for one championship. Bill, is Demetrius Johnson the flyweight champion over at one?
I do not believe so. I believe he was defeated.
Oh, you're right. It's some Brazilian dude. Hold on, let me look up this Eagle card. It was an Eagle FC 46.
Yeah. It was Kevin Lee versus Diego Sanchez.
Let's check out. Maybe it's on MMA Succo. Oh man, I forgot Kevin Lee had that tattoo on the back of his noggin there. Hold on, I can't find the card anywhere.
Yeah, well, all right. So the main event was Kevin Lee against Diego Sanchez, and all right. So Kevin Lee won this fight handily. I'm going to ask you, Art, while I talk about this, just pull up next week's UFC card and bring that to us if you could. Kevin Lee handily defeated Diego Sanchez by unanimous decision on Friday night. I have to say, in all the years of watching Diego Sanchez fight, this was probably the worst shape I've ever seen him come into a fight. And I think this fight was contested at 160 or 165 pounds, which, we have seen Diego Sanchez compete at 185 pounds, no problem. But even in those fights, competing at 185, I thought he looked in better shape than he did in this fight at 160 or 165 against Kevin Lee. And as out of shape as Diego Sanchez looked, Kevin Lee looked incredibly in shape, but it was also not the most impressive performance I've seen from Kevin Lee. Like, this is the weight class that he has been clamoring for years. And he just kind of fell flat. Like, Diego Sanchez wasn't really doing anything. And Kevin Lee could have probably finished him in any of these rounds. But came away with a unanimous decision. Give me your thoughts, Art.
Yeah, Bill. It sounds like neither one of them really wanted it. Um, you know, unfortunately, Diego Sanchez. I love him. I'm a huge fan of his. He's, I call him the last gunslinger, Bill, because he's the last fighter off that first season of the Ultimate Fighter, who's still active. But Bill, I think he's got to hang it up, man, and ditch that yoga instructor that he's got for a coach too.
I think he already did that, Art.
Damn. All right, Bill. I got next week's card pulled up here. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Yeah. Even if you can't, just tell it to us.
Oh, okay. All right. So in the main event, and I'm on Sherdog here, we have Bill, the one and only Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall, who I believe is British. Oh, and this card's actually going to be in the O2 Arena in London, England. That's where the soccer team Arsenal plays. And Bill, the prelims are on at 1. Main card starts at 4 for us here on the Eastern Seaboard. All right. Co-main event is Arnold Allen versus Dan Hooker. That sounds like a really fun fight. Then we have Paddy the Batty Pimlet versus Rodrigo Vargas. We have Gunnar Nelson looks like he's going to be on the card versus Takashi Sato. That looks like a really good fight. Although Gunnar Nelson, he's been on a bit of a layoff. I can't remember when he fought last. We have Shamil Abdurakhimov versus
Abdurrahimov,
versus Sergey Pavlovich. Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig. That looks like a good fight. Jai Herbert, who I forgot was even on the roster, versus Ilya Taporia. We have Jack Shore versus Timur Valiev. Molly McCann, I think she's a fan favorite over in England, versus Luana Carolina. That looks like a really good fight at women's flyweight. We have Muhammad Makiev versus Cody Durden. Cody Durden, a pretty exciting fighter to watch, but Muhammad Makiev is undefeated. He's 6-0. We have Mike Grundy versus Makwan Amir Khani. That should be a good fight. Been a fan of Amir Khani's for a while. Then we have Corey McKenna versus Elise Reed and Nathaniel Wood versus Vince Morales. Bill, what's standing out to you?
Grundy and Americani for sure. I think that's a really fun fight. That's a featherweight, correct?
Yep.
I think that one's really fun, and I think it's a really great fight night. Not a lot of star power there, but those are usually the cards that deliver the most.
Yeah, a lot of local names, it sounds like. But Bill, I think this card's going to be good. I think this is going to be one to watch from the start of the prelims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. If you guys agree, let us know in the comments. And if you disagree, let us know in the comments. And let us know what you think about the show. And anything else you want to add, Art?
Bill, I think that's all I got for you this week. I mean, this card looks really exciting now that I'm looking over it. A lot of local names, but names that really made a big statement the last time that we had a card over in England. So really excited. Looks like things with COVID are starting to calm down a little bit. So it looks like the UFC is branching out with events. So I'm excited, Bill. I'm excited to have a card outside of the United States.
Yeah, it should be fun. The time frame kind of works for me. It comes down a little earlier at this point, and the live listeners, including Mark Fellows, know that I'm kind of fading right now, admittedly. So I'm gonna have another shot of haha here, and probably hit the sack. Get ready for Epcot tomorrow. As always, the likes, shares, comments, and all of that stuff are well appreciated. If you want to get a hold of Art, you can't. So you'll have to reach him through me at MMA on the Rocks on all social media platforms. And if you want to get a hold of Jeff the Animal Wilson, same deal. Tell me, and I will tell him because I'm going to see him in a few weeks. He's a man of mystery. I haven't seen him in a long time. Art, thank you for joining the show. And is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
Bill, that's all I got for you, brother.
Well,
Enjoy
then,
Epcot.
thank you, sir. Then we will call it a show. Until next time. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye. Hit the wrong button.